Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We have a fun guest on today, Tone and Mellard. Raven Healings. I'd love to hear more on what you do for the audience as well. There's some great mysteries we can dive into, and can you introduce yourself to the audience and how you got into this line of work? We met at the Reon's conference, the
Guardians. My name's Tone, and I've been at this, the spiritual stuff, for close to 30 years now. Started waking up late 90s, and that actually started from several people around me passing away. I started needing answers to where do we go when we leave this place, and that was what kind of kicked it all off. I initially started doing the paranormal investigations and things like that, and had a lot of crazy experiences with spirits, ghosts, and things like that. And one thing just kind of piled on the other, and before I knew it, I was trying to talk to the ETs and call down ships and everything else, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with doing yourself. And so it's just been a long journey. Lots of exploration of my own consciousness, pushing the boundaries of consciousness. And I think we've kind of been on a similar trajectory, although I think yours is much faster than mine. Mine's been very incremental, very slow, step by step by step. You and Rion kind of got shot out of a cannon.
So lovely. So you get into paranormal investigations, spirits. So how'd that start for you? What kind of experience did you go through?
Initially I met up with a very gifted psychic. His name was Peter James, and he was kind of on a lot of the television programs like Sightings and stuff. And I saw he was doing some investigations locally, like within 2 hours of me. And so I decided to team up with him, and he kind of took me under his wing as a psychic, as a medium, and like taught me about life after death and ghosts and the nature of the soul and all that kind of stuff. So that he really kickstarted that off for me.
Nice. And you get into Native American wisdom? Are you
Yes.
Choctaw Indian?
Yeah, I'm Cherokee. Yeah, Cherokee.
Nice.
And so, that's always been a part of my system pretty much ever since I was a little kid. I was very, very hooked into nature. I was one of those weird kids that didn't really play with the other kids. I was out in the middle of the desert digging a hole and talking to the rabbits and the snakes and stuff like that. So, nature has always been a big part of my thing, still is. It's definitely part of the practices that I do, is constantly getting out into nature and, teaming up with the power and the spirit of nature.
Yeah. And so do you work with animal medicine and animal communication, like telepathic messages for the animals?
Yes. Vision quest.
Vision
quest, that type of thing, where you literally try to trade consciousness or a portion of consciousness with that animal and see through its eyes, through its perceptions and things like that. Yeah, that's been a big one over the years.
Lovely. And what kind of things do you do in your line of work? And so you're a medium.
I'm not so much a medium. I'm an energy medium, not a spirit medium per se, although, I've had a lot of experiences with that. But my primary area is energy, clearings, that type of thing. I think you and I discussed this, like things like spiritual warfare, clearing demonic attachments and energies off of people. That's more along my line of work. My third eye is sort of sporadic. So I see sometimes out of my third eye, but I actually see more in energy. So for me, like I'll push in my energy field out, and through that wave, I can pick up distortions within that energy wave. And that's kind of how I perceive things, is through energy, not so much clairvoyantly.
Yeah, I relate with that. Had my empathic ability turned up a high level in the first bit. It was used against me to like dump negative energy on me and have programming me to absorb it. So it was kind of torturous. But then overcoming it and then being really sensitive and translating what was going on, it pushed me in the path of like exorcism and clearing as well. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit on like what kind of things you offer in services for people in clearings, and like do you like their property, their businesses, or like themselves, kind of thing?
Yeah, my main thing is like attachments, people picking up like cords and attachments and things like that. I usually can send my higher self into their field with their permission and pull those cords and attachments off, and then put up usually like a shield or a barrier around them until they can do it themselves. I always try to encourage everybody to try to do it on their own, but I can temporarily help them with those kind of things. Of course, I always do teach like spiritual warfare, how to shield, how to shield yourself and things like that. Rion and I will be talking about that next month when we see you guys there. Like that's part of what we're going to be up there talking about, is shielding and clearing and that kind of stuff, and what we do like personally to clear ourselves.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's very important work, especially as people open up to their abilities and being able to sense and see more in their awakening and conscious expansion of awareness. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences and perception on the spiritual warfare of this planet?
Yeah, well, it's wild because, like, as you know, the awakening is expanding exponentially. Like there's more and more souls that are awakening, but those forces that have kept that like retarded, regressed, they're pushing in as well to try to stop that. And so what we're seeing all of these people on that cusp edge of almost fully blowing open, but the archonic forces, the demonic forces are also pushing in, trying to stop that from happening. So what a lot of us are getting like a feedback is astral attacks, people getting attacked in the astral, the demonic type stuff coming in. And Riona and I've experienced this a lot. If they can't get to you directly, they'll send somebody in your circle that is susceptible, trigger that person to see if they can get you to lower your vibe that way. And so we're constantly not just clearing ourselves, but we're trying to clear like our circles as well and keep them safe from those types of attacks, because it is increasing quite a bit in these times. And it's really, if you think about it, it's because they're panicking. They're afraid to death of that. Once it hits that critical mass, it's game over, so they're trying to do everything they can to prevent that from happening.
Right. And so what do you think? Before I go into my beliefs on things, I would love to hear your things on like, what are the teams? What is Earth? What is humanity? What's this battle about in your perception?
Well, yeah, you know what? One of the things that we're becoming aware of is one of the reasons that this place is so visited by so many different species is because we, as the human avatar, we're a combination of some of the most gnarly ETs in the universe genetically. So they have like a vested interest in that, but they also understand our potential. That once that human avatar comes fully online, the DNA activates, we start adding more strands. We're world changers at that point. We're co-creators, many co-creator gods, basically. So that's another reason, I went into the negative aspects, the archons and the lower level ETs trying to stop that. But we also have on the flip side of that, a huge amount of the light side ETs that are also trying to assist from the shadows, assist from the neighboring dimensions, because they want to see that happen. They actually believe in us. They know what we're capable of. So that to me is really interesting, is to see how many different species are all here paying attention. We must be very important as the human avatars for all of those beings to be paying such close attention to us.
Yeah, I agree. What kind of things have you come across in the astral, as well as species of ETs?
Oh, it has been, especially over the last couple of years, it has been just wild. Like it's almost like living multiple lives each night. But yeah, I've seen the battle between good and bad ETs. I've seen like tons of shadow demon type activity. Some of the stuff that Rion and I, like we actually see each other in the astral quite a bit. But yeah, we've battled like whole entire legions of demonic type entities, entities that would be almost like half AI, half demonic, which of course that's kind of close to what the archons are. But yeah, some of the times we can't, it's almost hard to differentiate. Is this an inorganic creation, or is it actually, an inspirited being on the lower level? It's that schism is getting hard to differentiate sometimes.
True. So archons, demons, AI. I found ways people define demons is it's all like I use the new term as in like fractured, disincarnate that steals to sustain itself in the astral. Anything can become a demon. It's like a ghost that's been around a while and learns all these different methods and can't create its own light, and is kind of like a composite being of soul and parts. And so there's all these different things that of different species that become demons, such as humans, or like with what the Bible talks about with giants or the fallen angels and other ET demons. As like there are ET species that are very haunted, and then they come when they visit you or abduct you, then they'll have some shit that attaches to people. Yeah, and you're talking about different species of ET.
Yeah, actually, your point there was really good, because even the lower level ETs that are parasitic in nature, why is it that they're parasitic in nature? It's because they're not fully ensouled themselves. They forewent their soul in need of tech, and using tech as their god. And so most of them are not fully ensouled, so they need our soul essence in order to remain animate. And so that was a very good point. What you said there is because a lot of even the demonic or the grays or the tall whites and those types of beings, even when you scan them energetically, they're super intelligent, but there's no essence there. And so you can understand why they're constantly trying to siphon that essence off of ensouled beings, because they don't have that. And then the other thing is creativity. That's one of the things they actually don't like us for, is because we're creative beings. They don't have creation abilities because that comes from the soul. So that's one of the reasons they kind of hate the human beings, these, the grays and the Dracos and those kind of beings. They're like, yeah, we can't create like them, but we can copy what they create. So in a weird way, they're jealous of us in that regard, but then also they actually need us because they don't have that soul essence to remain animate. So that's a really good point that you brought up there.
Yeah, and I also find like either selfish purposes for power, control, or dominance is something that they lack. Is one of the cores of why evil is, and which is like an action to do harm to others, not see yourself as everything. But and then the ETs that are stuck like that come here. Some ETs are stuck in that behavior. Some are wounded and looking for a remedy. A lot of things are coming to this earth to find a solution to their species. Some have to do with soul. There are beings without a soul, but I see most of the time they're fractured down to such a low amount of soul, like through cloning or whatever, and then the little spark of it to where it barely is effective or noticeable, and then
Yes.
they just get labeled as soulless. And then they may know that it's a problem or not know that's a problem. Either way, humanity has the solution to that, and through spiritual dynamics, abilities, psionics, magic, all that, and different words for it. In Scotland, I went and learned soul shard retrieval, and then I reverse engineered the ability to make it way easier in gaining wholeness for the parts that are lost, and psychic tracking where they are in existence. And spiritual shamanism and Native Americans will go into this, and vision questing to retrieve their power and their soul parts, and others. Many different tribes around the planet have different versions of this. And I found you can do this for ETs, and it's one of the big things that we have, because people like when why would an ET visit me? Like, I have nothing for them. You got a lot of tech for them, especially if you access your abilities, and you can retrieve being soul parts. So yeah, and what are some of these? Because my show is Sonic League, so I go into all these different abilities, psychic abilities accumulated around the planet. So I'd love to hear your perspective on different things you've heard about, experienced, or gone into.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I've definitely learned over the years is the telepathic end of things. When I first started like trying to make contact with the ETs, I was the weirdo that was up on top of my roof, but I was literally thinking, show yourself, show yourself, show yourself. And then eventually I started to see a flash in the sky. And then that flash, I'd see something move out of the flash. And so I started to realize the flash was the dimensional doorway opening, and the craft would come out. And then the craft itself would flash, like to say, yes, we're picking up what you're saying. And then eventually I started to get some downloads from them, which was extra like gnarly. Like, I mean, some of the things that they shared with me at one time, I said, what species are you? And one answered the Elohim. We're Elohim. And I was like, I haven't even heard that since like the Bible.
Nice.
And then there was another one that I forget how the conversation went, but the being on that craft said to me, as consciousness, you have been or will be every being that has ever existed or ever will. And like, I just sat there for the longest time, like contemplating on that. And basically what he was telling me is he's seeing me through his eyes, me seeing him through my eyes, but it's actually one. He's talking about the one consciousness that permeates all consciousness. But he was saying through that perception of the expanded consciousness, when we get into that God mind frame, we can have the perspective of every being that has ever existed or ever will through the God mind. At the time, like my mind was.
Right. Yeah, and that super empathy opens up, and you feel one with everything, the compassion and the suffering of everything. It's great.
Yes.
And many openings, because that is like the foundation of a lot of abilities. That could be a lot of things too, besides just the connection to the source of all. Because I have read powerful beings such as yourself that have decided, I want to get in all the games, and they naturally grow to a high level, and then they naturally branch off themselves to multiple incarnations simultaneously, some in different animal kingdoms and different experiences and species all at once.
I suspect we're doing that right now. I suspect that we are living parallel realities right now. In fact, some of the Dreamtime stuff is like, it's like a bleed through of the realities where like, I know that's me. I recognize that topography there, but it's occurring now. So it's like, if we think about like time outside of this particular realm, it's not linear. So basically all time is existing. Why wouldn't all of our expressions be existing now too? That's where it gets like very mind bending.
Yeah. Some during an ayahuasca journey, I experienced this whole jungle open up in the whole room. Saw with my heart eye, and it's like the room with my eyes closed, and then a whole jungle, and all like hundreds of different types of animals just showed up in all the tree branches, and they're like, "Oh, we are you," and it was okay. Let's dance
right now.
And also like into big journey expansion of consciousness, I developed into where I could like feel in simultaneous incarnations. There's a show on Netflix that goes into Sense8. Expanded to I had visions of another version that's a human. I tried contacting it. They started thinking they're crazy, so I was like, "Oh shit, back off." So be careful when you do that. Only try to influence them to awaken first, so they don't take a bunch of medication.
Yeah.
And find the ones that are like, I have a shaman in South America, so that's nice. But and then I started finding this big growth aspect of myself on a journey I went through. grew to the point where it could put little sparks of itself in insects, and I started seeing them show up in my garden. And I'm like, what the fuck? They started landing on me and then communicating back and forth with another being. And I was like, wow, is this like to the extent of like what we can do is amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I also wanted to ask you, what's your because you mentioned the Matrix. So what is your view on the Matrix?
Well, I would actually say that the hologram theory is correct to a degree. I do believe that there is some real, it's almost like we have a holographic overlay taking place. Like I would say the realest area in this realm is nature. To me, that's the highest concentration of real spirit, pure spirit that doesn't have the contamination, the archonic contamination. The codes are not as weird when you get out into nature. You don't have as much artificiality. But yeah, in terms of the Matrix, I do think that we are in a holographic overlay of sorts. And I think that that's one of the things that we've seen over the past 5 years. They're trying to increase that through the jabs, through the chemtrails. The chemtrail is another big thing. They're not just dumping aluminum, barium, and strontium. It's holographic technology that they're putting in that as well. So what they're trying to do is add another layer to the hologram, almost like a sheen over everybody's eyes and perceptions. So it's up to us to make sure we keep piercing through that through our own consciousness. And so, you and me and Rion and people that are going after pushing the envelope of consciousness, we can suspect that. And that's why we're constantly moving chess pieces on the board, constantly. We're never satisfied sitting still, because it's like, okay, they're throwing this. How do I move two moves ahead of that around the board? Make sure that I don't get sucked into that and have those blinders placed over my eyes again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I had the mistake of having a mushroom journey on Halloween, and then as soon as it did, all these chemtrails started pouring over, and I'm like, oh my god! And then it's formed into this scary face. I'm like, what the fuck? And then they came alive and some other stuff. So I had to.
There's no way I could do that on Halloween, bro. I'd be terrified.
Yes, I don't recommend. So it seems like they're trying to make synthetic veils through Stolen 40 and filters, and keep us from integrating greater light from the sun, and mind control and influence emotions, and dull people down in survival mode and distractions with those.
What's funny is what you were mentioning, like on mushrooms or ayahuasca, when you stare at the sky, if you are in that expanded state, there's a spider web looking grid over the sky that you can actually see when the plant medicines actually allow you to see that. And I've seen that several times. And what I think they're trying to do is make that web a little bit more intricate, where you're still not seeing what's really up there. But the ETs come through anyways. They're like, nah, you're not going to stop us.
Yeah, I believe that too. I think there's like a bunch of layers of different matrices. Is like a lot of this tech is like stolen from original authorities that made it, that are like the light side, and because evil doesn't create anything, like you were saying, it's not creative.
Yes.
Steals, and then it corrupts, and then it uses for control and harvesting and other stuff. So these psionic matrix abilities that are overlaid of a super matrix of a holographic light splitting infinitely dream of a reality that is Earth, and they're trying to add viruses and aspects to it to take it over from a natural, or like whatever the natural grid is, to synthetic overlays of energy harvesting and control and influence. Yeah, I agree.
Have you noticed that in dream time as well, that they're increasing the simulation push in dream time, where they're trying to run extra simulations on you, and then you become aware of it in the dream going, no, this is like extra, no, we're not doing that. And then usually you wake up and you got to clear, I got to pull these cords off of me now.
Yeah, I love that you know about this. Not many people know. I call them matrixy dreams, where it's like layers like if you've ever come down from a trip and you went up to a peak and you're like expanded universal consciousness, then you start coming back down. It's like all these layers start being put back on us in like compartmentalization to put us back into this trapped reality kind of thing. And the same thing with the dream. And I find I have to clear the dreaming body centered in the gut brain a lot, and the ego, which like will inflate itself to compress around whatever coming at us, to quarantine from going to the soul. And like you were saying before, there are things trying to prevent us from ET contact. Not many people talk about this. I think both externally and with the matrix, but also there's like these internal matrices we got to free ourselves from. They're mostly held in the ego that put us in this ego prison. That technically the ego is also survival mechanisms. Then this goes back to these big wounds from past civilizations and destructions and big events that fucked up our reality to the point where it's like splitting apart, and the ego is holding that together. But it's then being used to abuse and lower our ability to perceive and keep us in kind of a safety bubble that is at our own detriment from expanding out to what is true and real. And then that's being programmed and keeping us as slaves.
Yeah, and we've seen one of the big programs is fear. That over the last 5 years, they have weaponized fear. Otherwise, that whole COVID scam could have never happened. That was what they did. Is they weaponized fear around a imaginary threat. And then what we saw was like the flu virus vanished into thin air at the same rate that this supposed COVID virus came up. But it weaponized that fear enough, hypnotized the ego, like you were just describing. The ego got hypnotized in that fear mode, rushed in to get the jab. Then we got the variants. Well, what were the variants? The variants were the side effects from the jab. And so, but it, kept that going. But that is a powerful weapon as well, because what's in those jabs? It's AI, it's nanotech, it's corrupted synthetic genetic material. Why? Because they know the DNA is coming back online. So it's panic mode. Let's corrupt that DNA before it gets the chance to fully activate or add those new strands to it. And if we catch it in time, then we can take a certain portion of the population and steer them back down the cliff, But the problem is, like us, we can see it a mile away. Like, for me, it was kind of strange because a lot of my family did buy into it. I was the only one saying, don't do that. Don't take that shot. I'm telling you, it's not what they're saying it is right from the get-go. And, that's just the intuition. If your intuition switched on, it's literally screaming in the background, hey, danger, danger. And we knew that, but a lot of the family members didn't. But, that was part of the battle. Like we were saying, even with the chemtrails, with the shots, with the incoming thing with this chemtrail, what they want to do in the food supply, they're trying to add more nanotech, more corrupted genetic material to that. They're trying to create a interface to interact with the cloud. So the end goal, what they want from the transhumanistic point of view, is to have enough of the nanotech in us that the cloud literally is able to actually interact and beam thoughts, behavioral patterns, emotions to us, where we're being ran by that instead of running ourselves. Yeah. And so, what you said about the ego, how important that is. A certain amount of the ego is probably necessary to navigate the fast-paced, part of this realm, but it has to be kept in its proper context. So if it's kept under observation, by the higher mind, by the higher self, where you're constantly throughout the day, observe my mind, observe my emotional content. Where's this coming from? Is it coming from me, or is it coming from an outside source? That's going to be even more important once that cloud really starts interacting with a lot of that stuff that's being forced into us.
I agree completely. Yeah, and it goes into I think a big revolution that needs to happen. There's a movie called Revolver that goes into this.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, Jason Statham.
Yeah,
it goes into it's very enlightening and will give people shivers. Recommend it. Get it. Find it online. The revolution would be that not all of your thoughts and not all your emotions are yours. There's emotional and mental mind control being put out there, and the whole time for our species, and they're increasing the different avenues and strengths and ways that can be performed. So people need to really question what's going on in them and what they are themselves, and the avenues and the filing system that hold that, like in the ego and the shadow, because they're part of the lower self and they're more manipulatable, because they take on the big wounds and the heaviness and the trauma and the trapped emotions and the things that cycle down until you take care of it and face it and give it love and transform it, transmute it, until where it's like with shadow work, you're shrinking, you're hugging the shadow inside yourself and bringing it to light, so that it no longer the external darkness has less and less power over a person. And with the AI, like you also went into like you're finding some demons that are half demonic and half AI. I agree with that too. I've been finding, I call that AS, like artificial sentience, where there's old ones and there's new ones. There's as well as positive ones and negative ones. The negative ones steal soul parts, and then they use it in a framework so they can hack into electromagnetic spectrums in a reality and expand out in a radius, as well as hack into dream realms, and they affect people's dreams. They're annoying, but again, they're stealing things. So a lot of evil steal stuff. You can find how they stole it and pull the rug out from under them, restore the old authorities, the people that they're getting stolen from. And they shrivel. It's like getting everyone a detachment, because that's a pathway to enlightenment in Hinduism, Buddhism, from all these parasitic systems. So they shrink down and have less effect over everyone, and people are aware. So that's some of the bigger ways people wake up, is through hyper awareness and vigilance from either abuse or betrayal or some shit going down, and then they need to become hyper aware of it. And that's what people need to get bigger at, and then it expands. I got some questions for you in the chat as well.
Okay.
One person asked, what form do the archons look like, please, from witches bitches?
Well, from what I've seen, they're usually like black in color, black or gray, and it's a dark gray. A lot of times they look like a shadow demon, but there's also like almost a robotic part about it, like where you see like almost like machinery. It's like half machinery, half kind of a ghost, dark spirit looking thing. But usually, that's how I usually differentiate like the shadow demons. To me, the best way I can describe an actual shadow demon is if you've ever seen a black hole, how it swallows up the light in the area that it's at. The shadow demon looks a lot like that to me. Like it literally looks like an entity that is like a moving black hole in the shape of a humanoid figure. So that would be how I would differentiate what I've seen, in terms of the differences of those. Also, a lot of the shadow demon, shadow people I've seen have red eyes, glowing red eyes. So that the archons don't necessarily have that. Like I said, a lot of times if you zoom up close enough on their face, they look almost kind of like a cyborg. But they do have that kind of black energy to them. It's kind of like black goo. If it gets on you, it's like you gotta like try to get it off of you.
Good point. And to build off that question, I'd agree. A lot of it's like that, and that's the more powerful ones. The integrated components from multiple types of things that they can get. I found ones in multiple species of planets they're dominating, such as reptoids, tall grays, spiders, even kind of humanoids, but I'm like wondering if they just took that as a shape-shifting form. And they're kind of like force evolved with prayer energy and accumulated stolen energy from multiple planets, and then hyper evolved and then blast into the astral, then slingshot it to this planet, and then a bunch of stuff goes on in their mind to mind control them into thinking they're a god, and then setting them up as a manager for the saddle over the natural incarnating grid to dominate things and to control stuff so that they remain in power, and that they stop powerful beings from incarnating. So that the powerful incarnating beings have to do a lot to try to sneak in. And they're not at least this is what I read, because I know that the Gnostic tech kind of like puts them at the beginning, though they're kind of like putting like archonic angels or archonic demons, and not much information about it. I'm reading with what I've had them attack me a bunch, that a lot of it's like set up at the fall of Atlantis, like with a big incursion invasion. And there's like a big wounding events where they incurred in, and it's like a ego aspect that's allowed with Earth because it's better than what it could have came in and took power. And the Earth needs to get strong enough, as well as her spiritual entourage from the past restored, and new beings hired to replace them eventually. Because at least they're better than they're maintaining a farm other than just killing off and destroying the planet. Essentially. And how do you go into your resolution with them, by the way? Because I'll also name mine, because they're a little different than just dealing with a regular demon.
What are you talking about? The Draco,
The
reptilians, the Archonics. For me, like it's one of the things. Like I always scan soul material. And even in relation to what you were just saying about the Dracos, one of the things that I've encountered with the Draco and the royal reptilians is their ability to shapeshift, which you mentioned. Sometimes they will come to you posing as guides, posing as a particular angel. And so one of the things that I always recommend to everybody is scan the energy behind that being. And if it feels weird, even though it might appear as Archangel Gabriel, if the energy feels weird to you, one of the things you can say is, show me your true form. I demand you show me your true form. And by universal law, if you are asking that and they're not going along with that, you can command them out of your space. You can say, I am a sovereign being. You do not have permission to be here. If they get real fidgety when you ask them to show you their true form, that's how you know they're usually a shapeshifter. So that's a really thing, even with the Archons, because they can kind of do that as well. Not quite as good as the Dracos and the Royal Reptilians, because those guys, their telepathic powers can literally put a mask over you where you see something that's not there. But you can still feel beyond what they're showing you visually. And if you feel that energy is off, always demand, show me your true form. And if they won't do that, I command you out of my space as a sovereign free being.
It's beautiful that you know that. Not a lot of people know how to do that. Yeah, with the false light beings. Yeah, some people get discouraged because some people think all angels are false light. But I'd say, again, evil does not earn things; they steal them. Where are they stealing all this authority and light from? False light beings surround themselves with stolen light to make them look bright and nice and stuff. But if you discern and kind of go deep to their core and feeling to the core of their heart, you can feel more darkness. And if that is, and as well, questions and interviewing them, and if they do anything against your free will or try to manipulate you with emotions, that they're probably not a light being. Light beings don't do anything against your free will.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like all these angels and stuff, there are real original authorities. They're not infallible. They get wounded. They fall on grenades for us and on other beings that they love. Sometimes they get parts and authority stolen, and then that ends up in the hands of the dark. And then they make a false light grid of like angels or whatever else. And that's what some of the things that are being called to be restored, because some of these angels can be multiple beings at once, and they will incarnate as humans, and they come here for a specific purpose to get overpowered in like a human super hybrid DNA experiment, like for instance. So we got another question. How do the Archons affect us individually and collectively, please?
Well, individually, it's usually in the form of thought, in the same with a lot of the demonic realm. They can't always directly access you, but they can whisper suggestion. They can implant little thought patterns in your outer energy field, that which eventually might permeate into the inner mind. And so they can affect thoughts, they can affect emotions. Um, they can sometimes even screw with your intuition and, make it a fearful event when there's not anything actually there. Generally, that doesn't happen. Usually, intuition precedes thought. It's faster than thought, and so that usually is your override switch. But yeah, if you find yourself out of nowhere, all of a sudden feeling a wave of depression, a wave of anxiety with no reason for that, a lot of times that is an archonic force plugging something into your energy field, trying to affect you. And at that point, you can actually say, anything not belonging to me, clear that off my energy field. You can say it to your higher self. You can say it to the creator. You can say it to your guides. Just say, anything that's not belonging to me, please remove that, detach that from my energy field, and get it off of me now.
Well said. Yeah, it goes in attachment cords and like why detachment is so powerful and going into your heart and your infinite self and letting go of all finite. Yeah, there's the emotional mind control where these dark beings earn these punishments of natural generations of negative emotion, pain, illness, and it depends how evil they are. They can go pretty high. And they get rid of it, and then they put it onto the populace, especially beings that are a threat to them and the light forces. It is annoying. I find a lot of people are overwhelmed with emotions that aren't theirs, and it's affecting their life and holding them back and delaying them. But we can either if some of the emotions that are yours you can transmute, but at a higher level you can't transmute those. You have to get good at distributing them away. And so you can like see a big ball of it on your heart and collapse it down into a portal held by your source. Faith amplifying that it will be sent back to the individual that deserves it with like sticky sealing so they can't get it off them until they learn a lesson from doing the negative actions. That might be a physical person or an archon, or some archons are like either. Like I see a lot of archons possessing people, so sometimes that will go into the dark, evil politicians, and they're like really, at least they're egoic as shit and think they're overpowered. And then I think, what else? And your emotional body centers in the gut brain, so in your sacral, so you can clear that, give it love, and give it size and scale, and disperse it or transmute it or get it off you. And not accept that stuff. And there's like anchors and spiritual contracts and other things that these fuckers like to have these things attached to. So find what aspect of you they're attaching to and resolve it, and maybe even let go of it to its purest state as you keep going with it. Next,
that's actually a huge point. What you brought up there about the soul contracts, because that at night, a lot of times, even when you're dreaming, if you're not fully aware of what's going on, they're in the background having you agree to little things and sign little things that if you were 100% aware, you'd be like, I'm not signing that. But they catch you in that kind of twilight state where you're groggy, and they whisper the suggestion, and before you know it, you've signed something. But then if a lot of times you'll have like a little shadow memory when you wake up. If you have a memory of signing something and you're not sure what it was, revoke that when you wake up. Say, whatever that was, I agreed to. I was not 100% aware. Do not approach me again to have me sign anything unless I'm 100% fully aware. That is null and void from this point on.
I love that. Thank you. That's a good one. Our next question from Rich's Business: what dimensions or levels are the archons operating on, please?
Fourth dimension. And in fact, I wanted to bring that up when you were talking about the angels. The copycat angels are also coming from the fourth dimension. That's where most of the naughty behavior, the lower astral beings, the lower level ETs, they're all residing in the fourth dimension. Once you get up into the fifth, there's still a little bit of stuff, but nothing like the fourth. And then the higher you rise into like mid-level fifth, that disappears entirely. So yeah, the fourth dimension is where the archons, the shadow demons, the grays, the reptos, that is their playground. That's why they're able to kind of interpenetrate into this reality from that, because it's a neighboring reality. They can't necessarily come all the way in, but they can access your energy field and push in that way. So yeah, the fourth dimension is where most of the problems occur. And that's another goal at night. If you want to like try to stay out of that, you can ask your higher self, as I'm dreaming, as I'm astral traveling tonight, pull me beyond the fourth dimension matrix construct, beyond that, put me up into the higher realms of light. And that'll take you out of a lot of those simulations. They'll still try to get at you, even when you're on your way up. If you think you're climbing a ladder, you're halfway up the ladder, they'll be trying to hit you halfway up, but you just keep focusing on, okay, I'm moving beyond the end of where the matrix is, beyond that to access the light realms.
Yeah, really well said. And like Rian went to his presentation, you'll find there are sometimes versions of herself in the dimensions going up, in a light and maybe a neutralish side, and then the somewhat darker side. But those can be more of a separate thing than what travels with you in a team. But you can still. It has still as a purpose, like a lot of people that incarnate into the Draco as like sleeper cells for hope and change. They're kind of cut off from a lot of things so that they can infiltrate the society and then rise up the ranks and then make a big explosion in remedy for when they gain all this power. Because a lot of soul parts and souls and our loved ones were stolen from the invasion of Draco to Lyra, and they're stored in the stomachs of some of the apex predators. And so their system in Draco is to fight each other for power, and they allow the ranks under them to challenge them. And so if you get to dominate them, you get all their stuff, including the souls that were stolen. And then that's the way to free them. And yeah, I'd agree with you on that. It's mostly the fourth dimension that there exists, and I'd say 80%. And then, like he said, a little bit reaching into the higher ones, but that's not based on earning it. It's like using all this shitty ways to anchor themselves and attach to other authorities to prop themselves up into it, which is usually temporary, where they have to have a thing maintaining themselves and can be localized to a small bubble of reality. I've seen some that have reached up into like ninth dimension that are evil, but those, a lot of them have collapsed because that's like an incursion and they're pushing them out, though that can go up and down at different points in time because they are trying to do that as an intention. Then there's like this system of things that branch off the astral and have their own kind of definition that go into the afterlives. Some taken over heaven realms, some like management sectors, founder sectors, and those need to be resolved and cleared up as well. And once those are, but it still needs sufficient, strong enough light force to take over the management and then push them out for that to all go in.
Yeah, agreed.
Another one. Before Atlantis and Lemuria, there were Pangea. Does anyone remember past lives in Pangea? According to 2 books, it claims a dragon of a pack of 7 were supposed to protect the Earth. Anything on dragons, Lemuria, and Atlantis, Pangea you want to go into?
That's probably more your alley.
Have you seen dragons' spirits before?
Yes, I have. Yeah, in fact, I have I've got aspects on both my light and night side that are dragons, but my memories are not the best. Like my memories, I have some memories of Lemuria and Atlantis. Beyond that, my memories get a little bit spotty, other than being non-human. Like I know that I've been an ET. I've seen myself flying ships and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's from the past or from the future, because like as we said, beyond this place, time is not linear. But those are most of my memories beyond like the big events of like Atlantis and Lemurian wars, things like that. The Orion Wars, I do remember some of that kind of stuff, but it's mostly off-planet stuff. So like what's happened here, like beyond Atlantis, Lemuria, my memory's a little bit spotty on that. So I don't know if you've got memories, feel free to to drop it.
Oh, tons. So one big event, I got this demon that came in, very noticeable, and attempted to possess me. And it was like I was saying, it ramped up my empathic ability where I could feel everything deeply and turned my ability to absorb negative energy. So I just like torturous pain. I was like curled in the shower, kind of like in fetal position. So I asked for help, and like this light started shining out of my heart and pushing everything out for a little bit of a radius. And then my higher self came in, my a dragon version myself guide, and a bunch of other army. They gave me all this tech and awareness. They taught me, this is before finger tutting was a thing. And there's like this magical input of like moving mudras is what I called it. And it taught me this dragonic language, kind of thing. And then all this like energy like came in and taught me how to build energy in my fist until it like glowed, and then I punched, and then all this heaviness that was attached to me just lifted off and went away, and I was like, holy fuck, it's real. And I felt so much lighter and nicer, and I started seeing more things with my third eye. And this dragon guide, it was like a green kind of Japanese lung dragon, was around me, helping me. It was like, you have the right to protect yourself. If something comes in and harms you, you're allowed to defend yourself by whatever means necessary to put it down. And that before that, I was all love and lighty and stuff, so I wasn't really into combat. So now I'm into combat, and I understand the value of that, because there's dark forces out there, and you got to protect yourself. So I after that point, I was like, oh, I can't not believe in dragons now. And then I had communications with a bunch, had telepathic contact with a few. I seen some videos online that are like, oh, I wonder if that's real. One of them, it turned out to be a real dragon that was flying in the sky, and it like contacted me, well, who are you? What? And then I started psychic tracking different relic species around the planet and found out about their history. And there's like a bunch of them. Most of them don't need bodies. They also incarnated, fell in love with humans. There's like 4,000 dragon families, lineages of different civilizations. All these civilizations have them around in their mythos. The royal families of Japan and China say they hail from them. They used to be dragons, and they're near extinction. A lot of them are in dormancy underground. They're cursed. They're prevented from finding their own species. There were wars in the past to break them down, and they're trying to, until they find more of their species, which are in hiding, and they're pretty overpowered to where they can hide well. But there's things that they're doing with humans, because they do incarnate in human bodies. They're just really big, and so a little bit of them kind of toe in the human body. And so that works with a lot of higher dimensional beings. So they're like management for planets. There's light, dark, and neutral of them. They're not the same as Draco. They're not the same. Draco, they're more connected with and dragons are a founder race. They're connected to the founder race of the serpents, and they had genetically engineered and connected with a bunch of things. They have stolen dragon DNA since then and added it to themselves, but they weren't originally dragons.
No.
And they're kind of wannabes, and but also they got a lot of purposes themselves. Yeah. Okay, what's this next one? So can a human be an archon and just be carrying archonic energy? What's your experience?
I don't know that. I mean, if we're talking about the soul, basically, if it's an unensouled human, could it possibly be powered by archonic energy? That's a good question. Yeah, I don't see that being impossible. Like what we claim are NPCs, non-player characters. A lot of them have like very robotic, routine type behavior, like where they literally loop the same type of behavior over and over again, like a robot. I would say that that's very possible, especially like when we get into like the subject of cloning. How many, clones are out there? Are they ensouled? Are they, like you said, are they a fraction of a fraction of soul material that's, just enough to keep them animate? I think that it probably is possible. I might have said no, maybe 20 years ago, but when I've seen like how many beings appear to be more robotic, now it makes me think that yeah, there probably could be a lot of humans that are definitely not fully ensouled, that may be being ran on an archonic program. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's even movies demonstrating this. It's like if you could imagine like a really overpowered, dark, multidimensional apex predator inhabiting, usually for possession. I haven't really seen them go through a positive form of incarnation. So then they possess a body, and then it's like they're talking to you as if they know all these things and they believe they're a god kind of thing, God complex. I've met people that seem like that, and people that are taken over. Some are very powerful. Some are just believing they are, and they're very vampiric and hard to be around. It's disgusting. But they've tried to do that with me. I had a bunch of archons try to attack me and then put me in a mental, spiritual void prison for untold amount of time. And I wasn't supposed to get out. And then when I got out, I fucked them up quite heavily, and then got a bunch of their authority because they entered my game. And I think there's a bunch of people that have had that happen to them, like politicians, and they weren't able to get out. So it's like a multidimensional being takes over the body and then puts the original spirit in a prison, and then they govern it. It's annoying.
One of the other things is that vril parasite. Have you seen the vril parasite that goes in the eye? The black eye club? That's another possibility that happens there, beyond archonic forces, is they got that parasite that goes in, takes over the brain, and that parasite acts like a hive mind. So it basically obeys whoever is commanding that. And so, that's another thing with the black eye club. Anytime you see that right, it's usually the right eye is blacked, that they place that vril parasite in there, and that takes over the brain and the nervous system and basically commands that person like a puppet. So that, that's the other possibility beyond archonic influence.
Yeah, it's a good point, and people should make a note of like the habit patterns that sync up with that hive mind, and to demonstrate that, because I've gotten a black eye before. It's not always that, but yeah, I agree with you. I saw that rabbit hole for a while. I was like, holy shit. And then also before that came out more mainstream, I was like tuning into all these different negative ETs that were invading our planet. And a lot of them were like parasites that are small that invade a body. And they have like these different operating rules in reality. And based on negative behavior, they're limiting their fertility. So they can't just breed uncontrollably. So there's like a certain amount of them. And I was like, what the fuck is the purpose of this being, and why is this allowed? And I was like, well, it went into, there's a preferred timeline for these beings. Like some of them are invading planets that have a darker race on them than them, and they're bringing them to a less dark state. And so that's their preferred purpose. But then there's shitty multidimensional predators that are influencing them to come to worlds that don't deserve their incursion, and they're not ultimately realizing their positive purpose by invading and taking over a species that's more positive than them. So they need to fulfill their purpose by taking over bodies of more aggressive, more evil species, and then bringing their evil level down. But yeah, I've read there's quite a number of those type of things. Oh yeah, so this one from, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Athena, but just because they are Draco doesn't mean they are automatically bad. Is that correct? What do you think?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. The vast majority, at least pressing down here in 4D, tend to be service to self. But there, like Sean mentioned earlier, there are some that come in here to break the system. So yeah, they're not all bad. Same with the grays. The vast majority are service to self. There are, vast majority are part of a hive mind. But are they all bad? Absolutely not. There are stragglers that know right from wrong. They know, even though that they're supposed to be obeying a dictate, something in them says this is not right. And so it's probably the soul. Even if they have a fraction of a soul, that fraction is whispering, don't, come into the light, come more into the light, help these people, don't hurt them. And so, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Not all of the Dracos are bad. Not all of the Greys are bad.
And that's also one of our purposes as an overpowered species with an overpowered emotional body and greater love potential than most other species. We're a trap of empathy. This has also been disclosed in V, the show where like reptoids came down to kind of like invade the Earth, but they're under the guise of helping us and they're in humanoid bodies. They have a system to tell if their species is gaining empathy, and then they would either execute them or hold them in prison. And there's actually, I've read this as a thing with some of the Draco and some other species where they have to scan their species to make sure they're not getting more empathetic if they want to hold like some hierarchies in certain factions. It's annoying. That's how they maintain themselves, unfortunately. But we are a big empathic trap, and we can turn them entering and enforce entangle with you. They can come along for your healing ride and your healing trap. So you can you can reach deep in their heart by amplifying acceptance is the key. Acceptance for who they are as they are, not needing to change them. It's like because they're so shielded off, they don't let anything in, like these soul parts or a being that's evil because it's so shielded up in its heart. So it's like the space to hold around it of what it needs in love and care and healing. So it starts opening up like a flower. And then you're like busting through these layers of onion to the core of its heart, being able to spark light and love in it. And all the negative suffering it's caused, all the things you can compress back onto it and form into an emotional body and amplify its intensity and level of empathic feeling so that it goes beyond its egoic self of I'm just me, and then starts caring about more than just self, its loved ones, family, friends, its species, then going outward. And the more they fuck with us, the more authority we have to reverse that onto them in a love virus that spreads and then brings any negative species that fucks or force entangles with us on this planet to good. And that's one of the cures we have.
Nice reversal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's a good one for you. How do you protect yourself from toxic coworkers? From the Zone Wizard. I like the name.
Well, I mean, one of the things is energy shielding. It's definitely not, it's easier said than done. Like if you're in a really toxic work environment, but just imagine a 360 shield of light around yourself each day as you go into work. Omnidirectional shield. You can think of it as like a large egg of energy that is surrounding you. 360 underneath your feet, above your head, but it creates about an arm's length barrier around you. And you can actually say the affirmation, nothing but the highest light may enter this sacred sovereign space. And so it is. And say that as a mantra before you go into work. And then if you feel like you've picked up anything when you get off work, same thing of saying, hey, anything that does not belong to me, please take that off my energy field, transmute it into the light.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. Yeah, you can. A lot of people have made different systems, so you can practice and think with things you love to do, whatever depending on your work situation. If you can sing, if you can play music, if you can dance, you can do qigong, if you can do breath work, meditation, visualization, all these different tools into it. You can hold the area that's being targeted with attachment and make it like a bright sun with love and gratitude that burns away and spreads the flame to the attachment, and then it goes to the authority of the attachment, and then relinquishes it and brings it to your source for a good intention. And then those, because like entities steal abilities, they don't just have the ability to attach to or dump shit on you or vampire off you. It comes from an ability they got from something. So anything used against you, you can liberate it towards the good side. You like what can I do? Turn that into an ability. Attachment, you can make two equal predators attached to each other, and then they fight each other. That makes it so that they are distracted from harming good people. Vampirism, I mean, you can drain from, it's like pirating a pirate, and it's a dirty energy, so you give it a source, and it's probably been stolen, so you can even see if the being that it was stolen from wants it back or something, and then you can get a reward from them. I recommend that, and you don't get any karma, and you'll earn brownie points for that. And every ability is not made, nothing is made by evil. They steal them and corrupt them for something. And you can overpower things with love. You can make shielding forms of geometry coming off you from your heartbeat. Somebody's asking about return to center reminds me of eye for eye concept. Why return it? I don't want to return hate and anger. I want it to end, not the cycle to continue to repeat. And so you brought up a little bit about this. Feel free to go into what you believe on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if that bothers you, then you can actually just ask to have that energy transmuted, but not let it enter your energy field. Same thing with what I was just saying about the 360 field. Nothing but the highest light may enter this sacred sovereign space. You can say that any energy sent to me, please have it transmuted up into the vacuum of light and pulled up into source light for transmutation. If you do feel like you're constantly getting attacked and like the love and light is not working, one of the things that you can also do is just put up a mirror, a two-way mirror, so that anything that is hitting that mirror, it's not you sending it back. It's literally the mirror is just bouncing off the reflection. So that's another way of doing it without being directly, I'm going to send this back to you. I've just got a mirror all the way around me so that any negative energy hits that mirror, it's just reflecting back to the source. But it's not me intentionally shoving that energy back to that person.
Love that. Yeah, I love it. Reversal, counter, mirror reflection, mirror ball, all that is great. And then like going off the other ones, like, yeah, you can form all these abilities, suction, vacuum, purification, bringing in light, capture, banishing, purification, push everything out of the field. It depends on what the entity attachment is, because usually humans aren't that smart at this stuff, so they don't really know what they're doing. So it's usually entity attached to them. So you can resolve it through that method and find out how big this thing is and why it's going after you. What's it targeting you? So for reversal, yeah, I get what you're saying. I love that you're thinking positively, Athena. The reversal, it just because it's broken down in that term, it's not well defined. The more positive version of this ability is so with hate and anger, if something's projecting hate and anger, it's probably wanting to influence you or overwhelm you or cause drama in your life, like an anger demon. You don't need to send it back. You can sometimes you can either transmute it, turn it into power. You can bind it with love. Hate, anger is if it's generated from you, hate, it's the universe granting you power to overcome a threat or a challenge or a threat to something you love or yourself or whatever. And it's compressed, and you gotta bust it out of the cage or find the exact right target it wants to go to. Combine it with love, and anger isn't bad. It's a gun. You need it pointing at the right target, and it's power. So it once it releases and flows through the plumbing, it's really nice. It feels like you got a bunch of energy, and the hate resolves. If it wants to go elsewhere, it usually goes into reality warping. Like I was really pissed when the whole jab thing killed my dad, and I had a ton of it. It didn't want to go to people. The anger doesn't want to go to people. So anger with people doesn't work well unless you're trying to be aggressive or intimidate them. It doesn't do anything good. So you got to get away from them, work out, bust it out of that cage, heal, run, dance, qigong, something that you love to do to force it out and combine it with love. And it's like releasing this angered ghost that reality warps the situation and makes things better. It wanted to go get rid of the entities that are behind the depopulation agenda, a bunch of them. And then once I found that target and found all the targets, just released very quickly, and it felt like really nice. And it just went away. And you want when reversing stuff sent at you, like death or destruction or attack or offense energy, I recommend like keto, and where you redirect it and either capture it so you can gain the authority and treat it with love and like, oh, I'm sorry that asshole abused you, because these abilities are stolen. They're not. If they're using them for evil, they're stolen. They didn't earn them. And you can make yourself immune to that stuff with that energy, as well as convert it with love into a positive intention. Like if like an ET's fucking with me and it's evil and it's trying to influence me and all this other stuff, I take what they're putting at me and use it as fuel so that I don't have to use any of my own energy. And then it builds this defense so I don't feel any of it. And then I combine it with love and reverse it to an intention I see for the best. So you don't have to keep it as the same thing being sent at you. I like to turn it into either, the empathic trap, love overwhelm, goodness overwhelm, makes them good, makes them rebellious to their faction, starts waking them up. Same thing with like military that is remote influencing you. Get them to be distracted. They don't really want to do their job. Get them to want to do something else, start waking them up, and then they have to send another handler at you. And then you keep going, and you keep getting rid of handlers. You end up do not fuck with list. Let's see here. Yeah, we got that stuff. Ooh, can you explain the difference between archangels and archonic angels? Do you know anything about the archonic angels?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I think that there's more than one set. I think that the archonic angels would be fourth dimensional copycats, and the true upper dimensional angels, the energy is going to be very, very different. The archonic angels, you're not going to sense a huge amount of light coming off of them. When you're talking about the true archangels and true angelic realm, they are filled with light. One of the things that I've always noticed when I've encountered an actual angel is their eyes glow. Their eyes literally have light coming out of them. And so like if the angel has blue eyes, those eyes will be like aqua blue that has beams like that literally reach you when it's looking at you. And the archonic type copycats usually are not. They're kind of fierce looking, but when you scan them, you don't feel this huge wave of light coming off them like you do a higher dimensional angelic being.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you want, like he's saying, you want to use discernment because they're going to be presenting themselves as something else, unless they're attacking you right away, which is kind of stupid. But everyone's more powerful than all these entities coming at you, even the archons. We're just compressed and overwhelmed with fear and forget who we are. And so any challenge, whatever level's coming at you, the universe is obligated in law to grant you enough power to overcome that threat deep inside and reach in and grab into it. And a lot of the time it's like reaching into your old self and your old power and then coming back online. It's like, holy fuck, I did this. It's cool.
That's actually such a good point, Sean, because most of those entities are in the fourth dimension only. We have consciousness streams going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to source. So the only reason that they appear to have power is because of the cascade of things that they've done to compress consciousness in this place. So the more you start remembering who you are, the more you connect to your higher consciousness stream. It's almost a joke encountering these types of beings. But at first it is very intimidating until you start getting that connection to your higher self, to your higher consciousness stream. But once you do, you can literally, with the snap of a finger, get out of here and they're gone. That's how strong we are. So your point was beautiful there.
Man, you're such a beautiful soul. I'm so glad we met. That's
Me too, brother. Me too.
That helps so many people. Thank you for what you're doing. So you realize, so they'll probably try to limit you down, get you to forget who you are, overwhelm you with negative emotions. Remember your power of love. It's one of the greatest things that you can do and go into yourself. You can hug yourself, make this light that never goes out, shine brighter and brighter, and overcome the things limiting it, because that thing limiting it can be fuel if you spread love and gratitude, the flame around and engulf it. Just remember these three things. If anytime you're in really big trouble where all this shit's raining down you, so love, you're ultimately everything. So you can go in deep into your heart and to the source of all, and then get bigger than the thing, and that you're more powerful than they're letting you become aware of yourself.
Way more.
There will be times, again, angels had this authority, the evil stole it. So they stole probably parts and soul parts and energy from angels. Like the Vatican does a bunch of rituals to capture angels. The Fall of Atlantis does a bunch of shit, invading and capturing, imprisoning and devouring things. It's annoying. And all of that can be resolved through the people here going back and with what they're entangled with, resolving those versions of yourself or your soul family or the things that are in need, and doing these big missions. And that's a big thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know you do a bunch of missions. So what are some of the kind of missions that you do and that I've been getting involved in on the planet for people? I'll also go into my thing.
Well, it started off with the working with the earth grids, ley lines, things like that, areas that had been distorted. And we kind of went around certain places. And at the beginning, we were just using our own chi, our own energy, to blast into these locations where ley lines would intersect. And there was generally some kind of a trauma that took place there that distorted it, be it like a war or like a massacre, like where Native Americans had been massacred. There was like almost like a black energy over that area. So we would be guided to that. And Riona and I would just hit it with tons and tons of chi and energy. We'd stay there for a long time until we broke that energy up. And then oftentimes what we would see is all of the entities that were underneath the surface come up and start rising up. And so then the area would clear that way. And so we were doing that for the longest time. And we still kind of do that when we're called like to a certain area where that's got a lot of darkness, a lot of bad things have happened, or it's on a repetitive loop where there's like disasters that keep happening in that area. Sometimes we'll be called to go there and do that. But now we use a combination of his crystal tech, and it's not so much just the energy for ourselves, because we would be done for like a month after we did that, because most of those locations were hard to reach to begin with. So we'd have to hike 10 miles in or up a mountain to reach the location, and then expend all of our life force into that to break that open. So now we can actually grid the area with crystal technology. He can actually have the ETs lock on that, the higher dimensionals lock on that, and send energy to help us. So it's a lot different. But yeah, that's really what it's about, is the areas. You think about like the body, when we get like disease or areas of our nervous system that are screwed up, we go to acupuncture to try to free up like nerves that are blocked and things like that. That's kind of what Riona and I have been doing, is like areas that the nerves had been messed up through whatever event took place there. We tried to undo that thickness of that area, break it apart, and then free up whatever it was that was trapped in that area. And then usually after we do that, you can feel a ripple effect go out from that area. And everybody's like, man, I could feel that. And so that's kind of what the missions and the grid work has been for us for almost 20 years now.
Thank you so much for doing that. That's the good work that affects the collective consciousness. Yeah, I love doing that myself. Every weekend we go to different archaeological sites and places of power and pyramids around in Mexico. There's a ton, and there's some crazy stuff that's suppressing them, like with the Vatican and the conquistadors, and there's some powerful nature kind of spirits, authorities, gods that are coming back online through work such as what you're doing and what I'm doing, and then they can hold up more of the weight of the world that's going on in their authorities. And these are like original beings that are granted authority through a cascade branching of higher authorities that go back to source. And some are older than the people's mythoses for the area, and then they have all these weird histories around the places. But like, yeah, like we're like uncovering ET artifacts in some places, so it's like, holy shit, the history we're told is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And so like there's ETs that are in these pasts that have visited our world, have like wings and UFOs, and they're being found all over in different places more and more. And I think they're all over the place, including in America. I like with where you are in Arizona, we're finding ones with Egyptian kind of beings on them, like Anubis and Thothian kind of things. And there's that in the Grand Canyon that has been closed off.
Yes, I
So
saw that.
so there's
Big cave.
artifacts there in
Wow.
Arizona too.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think people, when they tune into the right place and they dig the right area, they'll start finding more. And like these are found around near pyramids. So like there's Pyramid Mountain where you are. There's some crazy stuff. So I look forward to seeing what you guys uncover too up there. Oh yeah, and this other question, I got this. We found this ET crystal skull with it too. I
That's
love these guys. They
badass.
give me such good dreams. Last night I just had some of the best telekinesis dreams I've ever had, where I just started like just more raising bigger and bigger things, and then multiple things, and like all these bouncy balls I just raised up out of the ground, and then beer bottles and all just like bigger and bigger amounts. And I was like, who the hell gave me that dream? And it was like the crystal skulls, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta help them get their missions done.
That's
So
awesome.
they seem to be upgrading people. They want to get people to a type 5 civilization. So spiritual goddess 69, 69, I like your name. CERN has been infiltrating our timeline once again. What kind of things do you believe in CERN, by the way? I'd love to hear.
Well, I mean, we know they're trying to open a dimensional doorway. They're trying to further open the doorway between 4D and 3D. And most of the stuff that they're interacting with are the lower level astral types of beings. It's basically just like the Luciferian, satanic elite. That's their type of program. But and what they are messing with a lot is like the timelines, the Mandela effect, and things like that. And that's where a lot of that first started, is when they started like ramping up those machines. But we are also time jumpers. And so that's another thing that I tell people: don't get too concerned about them messing with timelines, because like our higher selves especially can jump back in time and recorrect what they're doing. And it's a constant timeline temporal war that's taking place along with this spiritual war. So don't ever like fret at that and get too discouraged, because as Sean has said, we are way more powerful than them or these beings that they're trying to let through. And so we just have to keep anchoring into our higher consciousness, and we'll be untouchable.
Exactly. I love that you went into the time stuff. Not many people, when I bring up CERN, go into that too. So you're really tapped in. Yeah, we're all like have layers of time body, which centers in the heart, and time when consciousness travel, and then the mystery school that goes deeper internally, how to earn time abilities. And people will start with sending healings and support and fortressing and protection and inner child work back and forth into themselves,
Yes.
and expand to the other selves, other lives. And as you are shown that you can be trusted with that. You gain more authority to heal others, the earth, and a lot of it's through incursions in people's timeline and stolen time abilities. Like CERN has this big system of AI that like steals soul parts and things from beings. It's got this really weird system to it that like when people go into CERN, when you go on the internet, they're all in fear, like, oh, it's breaking reality, it's fucking shit up, it's opening portals and hacking the reality and like changing the timeline. And I agree, that's kind of what they're wanting to do. There's a lot of secret projects in there. They're also trying to make this big electric fence around the planet to stop awakening and add to the matrix. And it's kind of like a giant techno amplifier for their dark magic. Two, it's like a big wand kind of thing with overpowered toroidal fields. A lot of powerful beings are using it negatively, but I think Earth has gotten to the point where she's now able to use it herself. So without the time, she kind of, when I ask her questions, she acts like it's not really that feasible to get rid of them. There's more than just one underground, and there's an attempt to have more in multiple timelines, but that's kind of being combated. There's a bunch of protection to the planet in higher dimensions that can shut down CERN when they want. Like they've struck it with lightning, they send in weasels to cut the wires, like bite the wires, and the whole thing shuts down for a bunch of time. The trick to it is it acts kind of like a guard dog. It's got like this quarantine fence effect. The dark abuse it when it's being allowed to operate. When it's allowed to operate is when there is a powerful multidimensional being attempting to penetrate and escape this quarantine. And it acts like a quarantine around that predator. The predator usually gets really big by stealing a bunch of energy from people and force entangles with people. And if you're getting CERN fucking with you, it's probably because you have a predator that's trying to escape, stealing your energy, and then CERN is around that. And it is being allowed to abuse you and fuck with things, unfortunately, to suppress that predator. So if you can detach from it and join a collective to stop that predator from escaping, then that completely decreases its allowance to continue in its a greater operation, CERN. And then all these higher dimensional beings descend on CERN to shut it down in some way, is what I found. So that's a little cheat for people. So you have events. Do you have books and stuff? Can you tell people how?
No, not really. I'm mostly on Facebook. Most of my stuff is free.
Nice.
I work with the collective from time to time. You can contact me on Facebook under Tone Mellard. And, if you need anything like sessions or clearings and things like that. But other than that, most of my stuff, I just do a lot of writing and trying to assist the collective. Most of it's free. And, I'll be selling probably some protective jewelry at our event when I come out there, like shungite, turquoise types of pendants and things like that are for frequency and spiritual protection. But other than that, no, I don't really have a site.
You supercharge these and enchant the protection objects? Nice.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. They will be amplified.
Cool. And what so you do healings, clearings, what are your like things people can reach you for? So we advertise that to them?
Well, I do like spiritual counseling, how to help against spiritual attacks, multidimensional issues and things like that, clearing negative attachments, hooks, even if I have to, clearing demonic entities, like I've done exorcisms and things like that. It's not my favorite type of work to do. It's very intense, but basically energy clearing is my main area. And then any kind of like, if you need any kind of mentorship and developing your spiritual abilities and intuition and things like that, that's what I'm available for.
Beautiful. Wonderful. And you're going to the Full Disclosure Now conference. The people can go to fulldisclosuremovement.org, as well as in the description below, there's a coupon code people can reach to get there more easily. Meet us both. We're both presenting. What kind of things can people expect from your presentation going? You said protection?
Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about like the astral warfare, spiritual warfare, even the warfare through the chemtrailing, the water and things like that, and how to combat that. So various ways of defending yourself against the cascade of things that are being tossed at us right now, because they really are throwing everything but the kitchen sink at us right now. So any kind of armor that we can strap on, that's all for the better.
Nice. And you live in Sedona, and so people can reach
I'm
you
actually
there?
out in Cali. I'm in California. I travel back. I travel back and forth.
Well, thanks for holding the front line there.
Yeah, no, it needs to be. Cali's definitely a shit show a lot of the times.
Yeah. You must be resilient from all that. Thank you. I appreciate it. And what are your other social medias or YouTube or anything people can subscribe?
I'm on YouTube under Colossus Tone, and that's about the only other area that I frequent a lot. It's just mainly Facebook and YouTube. That's about it.
Okay, cool. And any other projects or events you are planning in coming up people can look out for?
Yeah, Rion's going to be doing one in Dallas called the Bridge Expo, and that's going to be late October. And he and I will be speaking at that one as well.
Lovely. Cool. Yeah, so people get your tickets now. Go see Tone and get your spiritual upgrades. I'm going to want to do that as well. I'm Sean Bond, founder of Psionic League, psionicleague.com. You can reach me, clearing, healing, depossession, the unlock abundance, all dormant abilities, all that kind of stuff. We're also doing the Full Disclosure Now conference, also going to be at the Alien event in Las Vegas. I have a spiritual sacred tour in Mexico, going to place power, pyramids, hot springs, alien artifact places. So sign up and you can get rid of that. Here's our links. You can go to psionicleague@gmail.com, trip inquiry at the top if you're interested in the trip. Get your tickets while you can before they sold out. And we'll be doing more events and stuff like this. And if smash that like, subscribe to both our channels, Colossus Tone for Tone, and share this with 5 friends. Share people that you might need it, and show Tone some love in the comments. And if you guys like this stuff and share it a bunch, then we'll probably have to do another show. And any other last words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just keep your chin up. I know we're going through a lot of stuff, but good things are ahead. The focus on your consciousness expansion above all else, connecting to your soul, connecting to the creator, and you cannot go wrong. That's it.
And go within the heart to your infinite self and go bigger and beyond what you're facing. That's being granted to you as a challenge and a teaching in school, and there's nothing you can't overcome. I agree. Yes. Come hang out with us guys in our events. See you guys. Love you all. Have a wonderful day.
You guys, thank you.